meeting to order, seeing how it's a little after 9. This is the Board of County Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, July the 28th, 2020. As I call the meeting to order, and we have Zach Keller with us this morning from Life Church that's going to do our invitation, followed by a pledge of allegiance by Commissioner Rawls. Zach.
Yes, thank you. Heavenly Father, Lord, we just come to you in this time, Lord, and we invite you into just the hearts and the minds of these leaderships, Lord. And we know that no plans of man will be successful, Lord, if they're not in accordance with your will, Lord. And so we just pray that you just give divine wisdom in all the matters of today's meeting, Lord, and that you would just work in the lives of each of these leaders for this community, Lord. We pray that all that is done in the borders of Putnam County, Lord, would be in accordance with your will. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Keller, and thank you, Commissioner Rawls. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes listed on the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Goddard and a second by Commissioner Harvey to approve the minutes as listed on the agenda. Is there any additional corrections or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Commissioner Rawls, were you opposed or were you just late?
Late.
Okay.
I was also muted, so I'm aye.
Yep, no problem. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We're going to move into public comment. This portion of the agenda is designed to allow citizens an opportunity to bring matters to the attention of the board. It is not reasonable to expect that the board will engage in debate or deliberation about matters on which the board has received no prior information as part of the agenda. The public is encouraged to watch on YouTube Live or by sending an email in advance of the meeting to BOCC meeting comments at putnam-fl.com. Please include your name, address, and phone number. Laura, do we have any this morning?
No, sir.
Okay. So if we don't have any public comment at this time, we'll move out of public comment and we'll recess the Board of County Commissioners meeting, and we will call the Solid Waste Collection and Disposal District meeting to order.
Mr. Chairman.
Just a second, please.
You're 5 minutes early, sir.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to wait for 5 minutes. That was a 9:10 certain.
Yeah.
So we're going to, Ms. Lynch, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Would you mind me going ahead?
Reconvene the meeting, sir.
Okay. I'm going to reconvene the Board of County Commissioners meeting and recess the Solid Waste Collection and Disposal District meeting until 9:10. And I'm going to ask Ms. Lynch if she would go ahead and do her presentation before we get into solid waste. Thank you for joining us today, Cheryl. Please continue.
It's already half the year has gone by. We've got our quarterly report from April through June and then the year to date for 2020. You'll notice some really big numbers in there, and that's because of the COVID impact and the amount of people we've talked to with bridge loans, PPP loans, economic injury, disaster loans. I do want to point out, though, in the 5.7 million in loans received, 4.3 of those were not COVID related. I do have other loans in the works right now. I've got about 5 that should be closing, hopefully. We did have one bank back out, but we're finding another one. But it's been a little bit challenging for some of these businesses with money. I did want to inform you, we got some information pertaining to the number of PPP loans that were distributed in Putnam County. It's give or take around 40 million. There was one loan within the range of 2 to 5 million. There were 3 loans in the range of 1 to 2 million. There were 12 loans in the range of 350,000 to $1 million. There were 31 loans in the range of 150 to 350,000, and there were 467 loans for 150,000 or under, giving us around plus or minus $40 million in PPP loans just in Putnam County. The PPP has been extended. However, not a lot of banks are participating. If there are folks and their bank isn't participating in the PPP, I recommend you contact us. Look at our website. We've got a lot of avenues and outlets to let folks know of lenders that are still providing economic money for the COVID pandemic. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan Advance is closed. So if a business does apply for an economic injury disaster loan, they are no longer giving advances. They're just processing the paperwork, and it's taking anywhere from 5 to 10 days. So they are all caught up mostly and are working through that. There have been folks that have been denied based on credit, but the credit didn't make sense. So we're advising folks that if you have been denied the economic injury disaster loan is to fight and ask for a reconsideration. We are working with a lot of people on that, on how to approach that. A few housekeeping things. Kevin Monahan, who was my direct supervisor, has retired from the SBDC, so he's living the life of relaxation now. And Janice is my direct report now. And we're still trying to figure out if the Florida Jobs Growth Fund was dissolved. There were rumors. We're trying to find out information. Not sure if any of you have heard whether there are funds still available for that, for the application that we put in. But we are working with UF now for the National Science Foundation. There's a grant application for planning that we're working with University of Florida on for the First Coast Food Innovation Center. And we'll see what happens going forward with that. So we are still working on that. There are avenues with the CARES Act, with COVID, for other funding potentials, but we are still grinding away to try and make that happen. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you gentlemen have.
Thank you, Cheryl. Is there any questions of Cheryl? Yes, Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, Cheryl. You gave out some numbers today of businesses that applied for the PPP, and it was around $40 million in Putnam County. How many businesses were that? I think you gave a number of 467, but then there was some other factors. So could you kind of hit me in the ballpark of how many of those businesses applied for PPP?
Just a little over 500
Okay.
that actually received PPP.
Yeah. How many applied though? You said some were denied for credit. You don't know?
For economic injury disaster loan, the SBA, I can only account it to maybe new folks, but folks that had credit scores in 650, 670 that shouldn't have been denied were denied. So we've asked them to, we've assisted them with putting a write-up together and resubmitting that. That's taking a little longer. They're taking about 2 months to respond on that. So folks are getting a little antsy.
The reason I ask, as you well know, the commission last week funded 1,000 businesses in Putnam County at a $3,000 grant, if you will. And just kind of wondering if those numbers would seem to be enough. We don't know really until that time comes, but you would think if businesses needed PPP, they also needed some other help. So maybe that would give us some kind of a rough ballpark, but if we have over 500 and we've allocated 1,000, we might be in a pretty good position right now.
Possibly.
Commissioner Harvey, I think that you're going to find that with us including 1099 people that never could put in for a PPP loan to start with, I hope I'm wrong, but I think we're going to be inundated and that we're not going to have close to enough money allotted at this time, depending on what we come up with the criteria to qualify for the program that we've just started. A lot of the people that were included in the initial application that you submitted were not eligible for PPP at all. And so, because they didn't have any payroll. So I think that staff has met once already, and I think they're going to meet 3 times total this week with Whit O'Brien, and hopefully we'll get a little closer to where we're supposed to be on that
Chairman?
issue. And
I'm sorry to
yes.
interrupt. We're having some streaming difficulties. We might have to pause here for a minute.
Okay. Well, I'll quickly finish up and then we'll pause. Basically, Commissioner Harvey, I'm hoping to be at a point that we can call another special meeting next week and discuss that if Whit O'Brien and staff is to that point yet. So hopefully.
And Mr. Chairman, I sent an email the other day, but also, I think we need to look at those applications before they go out, just to make sure that, maybe some people didn't get affected, or maybe not everybody, hopefully not everybody will apply just because there's a pot of money there.
Well, I think what you're going to find, Commissioner, is Whit O'Brien, our consultant, is working diligently with staff, and we're not going to just rubber stamp Okeechobee's thing and send it out. They're going to make it a little more conducive to what we have in mind and bring it back to the board for their approval, additions or denials, or whatever the board chooses.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Does anybody else have any questions of Cheryl before? Okay, I don't hear any. Thank you again for coming today, Cheryl, and giving your presentation.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Now, Jacob, how are we doing on our streaming problem?
I'm working on it.
Do I need to take a recess before we move into solid waste?
I'm showing it's streaming, but I'm getting messages saying it's not. So I'm trying to check on my end here. I guess if you want to take a short recess.
Okay, I'm going to take a recess from the Board of County Commissioners before we move back into the solid waste collection and disposal district meeting. So we're going to take a 5-minute meeting where he can get some IT work done. Okay, according to our IT department, we got our live feed running again, which was being cantankerous to say the least. So this time I'm going to open the solid waste collection and disposal district and and we'll start by saying, is there any questions or comments? Or I guess I need a motion for approval of the previous meetings listed on the agenda for solid waste collection and disposal district.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it and motion carries unanimously. The next item is under solid waste collection and disposal district is the adoption of the setting solid waste assessments and user fees for fiscal year 2021 as has been presented. Does anybody have any discussion on that issue before we take a motion on it?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, Mayor Hill.
I can't see my docs. What's the difference between last year's assessment and this year's assessment?
The proposed assessment last year was the actual assessment last year was $229. This year proposed assessment, I believe, is $288, and that includes the pickup fee for the county too. It would be different in the city because you don't pay the pickup fee in the city.
Right.
Matt,
And only, go ahead.
Matt, would you have those numbers for the city too, sir?
Sure. Yes. For the city of Palatka and city of Crescent City that does their own collections, it's a decrease of $41 from this year going into next year.
Okay. I know in the past years we've been looking at trending down on the assessment, and I know that's been something that's been very critical to all of us working on trying to make sure we can reduce the cost for the citizens.
Yes, thank you for that, Mayor Hill. The actual decrease is $41 in the county also, but it takes into effect in the county. It also takes into effect a $3 increase in the pickup fees around here that would have gone up, plus the increase in the assessment that would have gone up this year if we hadn't taken the steps that we took to get the landfill. So instead of having probably a $52 or $53 increase, we had a $41 decrease. So like Mayor Hill said, I totally agree. We need to work hard together to try to drop the assessment as much as we can on the citizens of Putnam County for that asset. Is there any further discussion before we adopt the resolution that's been presented?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we adopt the resolution as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Harvey and a second by Mayor Hill that we adopt the resolution at the rates that have been presented. Is there any further discussion?
Under discussion, I think it's important that we point out to the public there's also a cost savings on them taking debris to the landfill above their basic amount.
Right, there has been a decrease in gate fees included in this. That's correct, Commissioner Rawls. I think it went down from 44 to 34 commercial, and it went down to 24 for residential, above the amount that you're already able to bring to the landfill without a charge.
That's a more than a 25% reduction on the commercial side alone. I just thought it was important to get that out.
Thank you, Commissioner Rawls, for bringing that up. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to
Yes.
make a comment and thank you and Jay Tilton for the work that y'all did to be able to bring these figures to us. And I think it's just a reflection of hard work and due diligence that we're able to do this. So I think this is good for Putnam County. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pickens. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for attending the Solid Waste Collection and Disposal District. I will now adjourn that, and I will reconvene the Board of County Commissioners meeting, and we will move into item 5B, which is the Fire and EMS Committee presentation of their report. Before I turn this over to, I think Jim Troiana is going to make the presentation this morning. I understand, but before I do, I'd like to be the first to thank everybody that served on that committee and took their time to get us where we are today. I really mean that. So with that, if Jim, are you on with us this morning? I don't see you. No, I do. Okay. Yeah, Jim, you're going to make the presentation, correct?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. That's absolutely correct. When you're ready, I'm ready to begin.
We're ready, sir.
All right, Mr. Chair, first, I just want to make sure that our committee members have had an opportunity to join the Zoom meeting. Although I am their facilitator and will be making this presentation, this has been a collaborative effort, a team effort between all of us, and I wanted to make sure our team members were all present. Jacob, do we have all of our members present?
Jim, I co-host the meeting, and I don't know if all your members are present, but I know that going down the list here, I see you, and I see, let's see, Gary Warren is with us, Clue's with us, Chad's with us, John Chapman's with us. I'm sure Nat's with us, Nat Gill. Chief Quinn's with us. Yeah,
Richard Pack.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to get on board. This has been a very important mission for us. And I would like to say that for those watching this presentation, we have posted this report on our webpage. So if you'd like to read along as I make this presentation, please visit our webpage so you can review the report. Well, Mr. Chair, again, we, the committee, would like to thank you, the board, and all the staff that have truly made this possible. We received our marching orders and our charge in late February after your meeting, a workshop, and we've taken it very seriously. We as a committee have met 8 times. We have talked a tremendous amount about the organization, the needs of this community, and have presented to you a 17-page report. It's important to know that there are 15 members of this committee. Fire rescue, law enforcement experience, community members, governmental experience, and all we have approximately 350 plus years of professional service to public safety in the community. And I think that speaks volumes as to who was selected and the work that was done by this committee. And I do want to tell them thank you for their confidence in me as their facilitator and us moving forward with this report. I'm going to present the report to you if it's okay. I'm going to put it up on the screen. I am going to read certain parts of it, and we, the committee, are prepared, as well as I am, to answer your questions or any other board members' questions as we move forward. So, Mr. Chair, if that's okay, I'd like to go ahead and begin.
Go ahead, Jim. Sorry, I was on mute.
No, it's okay, sir. So this is the report that we presented. It is a 17-page report. It's important to see on the very beginning of this report the unity of those working here, Putnam County government, our emergency services, fire and rescue, all of our volunteers, and they've done a tremendous job for us over the years, as well as our union partners from the Putnam County Fire Professionals, Local 3529. Mr. Chair, this is our final report, and we've titled it Repairing a Broken System, a presentation of critical fire, rescue operations, and recommendations and suggestions to you, the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners, dated today, July 28th, 2020. Simple organizational part of a table of contents. And getting into the most important part of this presentation is what we were requested to do. It's been our committee's responsibility to be open and honest, and we have been with these deliberations that we've had. We've also allowed citizen comment throughout our meetings, and it's been very important that we've been able to listen to their comments and include them in our recommendations here in this report. Mr. Chair, as you'll see, as I just pulled this report apart for you, we provided a brief bio to support the comment I made about our 350 years of service. As you can see, our committee members include Wayne McLean, citizen, Mike Perry, another citizen, Clue Wright, county fire employee, also president of the local union. And then you can see our fire staff, Richard Back, Nicole Glantz, John Allender, Nat Gill, Joe Guthrie, Tina Hitchcock, representing our volunteers, and our chaplain, John Chapman, Gary Warren, David Birch, Chad Hutchinson, a retired captain with our fire service, as well as Chief Quinn Romay, who we must all say has done a terrific job trying to keep this ship afloat, as you will see with the issues that we've been able to identify. Certainly our hats off to Chief Romay, and thank you for his continued service to us and to this department. And finally, me as your facilitator. So as I get started, after we were formed, as I mentioned, we've concluded our mission, and we are making a recommendation to help bring this public safety service to a level needed to serve Putnam County and our community. Mr. Chairs, we don't know what the future will hold, especially during the throes of battling COVID-19. This department must be ready to respond now and into the future for all forms and hazards. However, it's abundantly clear to everyone on this committee that this department is lacking structure, depth, funding resources, accountability, and follow through to allow the service needed to fulfill the needs of this community. Mr. Chair, we strongly believe that our findings will help stabilize this department, provide you tools to help begin that process of development and growth that would be part of a backbone for a new community. I'm sorry, a new department that's serving our community. Furthermore, it's our belief that with the creation and adoption of a new organizational structure and the staff required to adequately fill our critical needs that we've identified, we will remedy the majority of our issues. And we please not to look at the sticker shock at this point as to what we have found, but to listen to the conclusions that we have made in this report. We are identifying approximately $8.1 million in new funding. And this is funding to pay for positions, stations, equipment, and miscellaneous uses. And this is not a one-time fix. This will be something that will have to be done each and every year to ensure this department does not fall back into disrepair. We feel our findings in this report coupled with a standing fire committee that we hope that you adopt, will be beneficial to all, and it will also eliminate the need at this time to hire a private consultant to evaluate the needs of this department. Hiring a consultant for funding responsibilities or options is certainly supported by this committee. Our committee is fully aware that there have been efforts like ours in the past to address similar issues, and their findings of those reports, really dating back to 2000, appear to have resulted in little to no action to resolve the issues that we have only seen grown in size and complexity today. Mr. Chair, since time is of the essence and the need to take action is now, without immediate change today, one that includes funding and support based on past and current trends and experiences that we're seeing, you cannot expect this department and its volunteers to be able to provide the levels of service necessary to this community. In closing, again, for our executive statement, it's our committee's humble thanks to you and all for your direction and urgency shown for this critically important public safety fact-finding mission. So, Mr. Chair, really the meat and potatoes of this report are 10 separate recommendations. And the first and foremost is accountability and culture in the organization. It was truly clear to all of us that it's absent, that it's been broken, the department has, and it's on the verge of failure. We've had many discussions and determined the root cause of what we found was related to a lack of organizational structure, consistency, and it's very important that we touch on that topic, funding, leadership, and the vacancies throughout the department, especially at the upper levels. The current structure is only working, and I'd really like to echo this loudly, because and due to the professionalism and dedication of our paid and volunteer staff. However, without something happening, we do believe that we will see true issues in the future. We have carefully identified some hot spots, and we have determined that a new organizational chart is needed as a backbone to guide this department both now and into the future. We will provide a glimpse of what that looks like later in the report. It also brings in this organizational chart all of your volunteer fire departments under the control of the fire chief or the public safety director. And that's critically important too through our findings, as we'll discuss later. Any salaries that we've identified here are only suggestions. They're based on an average of ours compared to other organizations. However, if the salaries are low, we would truly urge the board to recommend competitive salaries for each of these positions. So I just briefly want to touch on some of the new positions that we're recommending. It's been in the newspaper, what we have been talking about, but I wanted to be able to, on behalf of the committee, talk to you about the needs. As you'll see in a second with our organizational chart, we have a fire chief, but under that chief, there's really no command and control. So we're wanting to support him and the department by creating a deputy chief or a number 2 in charge of the organization. Under the deputy chief, we're asking for several different positions to be created. One, an operations division chief. This would be the number 3 rated officer in the department and will be in charge of all operations in the absence of the fire chief or their designee. And they will be running the overall operations of the department. They'll oversee all areas of fire rescue operations, have battalion chiefs, EMS coordinator, and the volunteer coordinator as their direct reports. Although the department does have captains, based on our new organizational chart, we saw the need to increase or expand those positions. So we're asking for 3 additional. So 1 deputy chief, 1 operations division chief, 3 captains. And I'd like to spend just a little time here, if I may. The logistics section coordinator, as it's written in the report, this by far is the most critical of positions in the proposed organizational chart. We feel it will pay for itself in at least a year. And we have found so many issues when it comes to logistics in this organization, whether in the volunteer side or the full-time side. So we want to have a position created that will take care of monitoring, procurement, storage, inventory, distribution, collection of material. Some of it's vanished, some of it sat on shelves, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of investments. and never went anywhere, was never used. And we feel that there's a better way of using the taxpayer dollars in a way to benefit this department.
Jim, are you still trying to scroll your screen?
Oh, I will do that. I'm sorry. Thank you, sir.
Just for the people at home
Nope.
that don't have a copy of the report?
Great, sir. Thank you. Our next section is our training section coordinator. Although the department has many people that are doing this task, it's truly falling on too many people. We need to have someone that's doing this, that's dedicated, that's experienced. This is their primary responsibility, to where they can get the rest of the staff together and provide the best training, not only to our staff, but to our volunteers as well. We do not have a dedicated EMS coordinator. And so much like the training section coordinator above, we feel that this is an important task. We have a lot of responsibilities, as we're definitely seeing through COVID. And because of this, we feel that this is a critical position, one that you would find in a modern, forward-leaning organization. The volunteer coordinator was once a position that was held in this organization a few years ago. With our 18 volunteer fire departments doing a great job in the community, they need a voice in the organization. And having this position is one that they truly advocate for. This committee feels it's the right position to reinstate. And we would like to see the board readopt this position, again, to ensure that the lines of communications are functioning and that our volunteer fire department is running as proficiently as it can within the organization. As you will see later in the report, we talk about the need for retention, the need for recruitment, the need to hire for positions, and it's being done on the shoulders again of many. Although we want everyone in the organization to be a recruiter, we want to identify one person that will be responsible for the recruitment, and we'll talk later about that in the education and recruitment section. So, Mr. Chair, this is a breakdown of those positions that I just very briefly discussed. We're looking at a total cost. Again, these are salaries and benefits. They don't include vehicles or equipment or onboarding costs, such as the HR process for testing and evaluation. So we're looking at a cost of $817,219. And if you can look at the organizational chart here, everything that's in yellow is an existing position. As you can see, the positions that are in a darker color are the new positions or new offices to be created. Administrative services and prevention services are no cost. We're just reevaluating and creating a new office that would be staffed by those, as you see in the organizational chart. Even though we have a few open positions, as you can see here, the need, as I just mentioned, for staff in between the chief and truly below the lieutenant, below the captain's rank to lieutenant, and firefighters and paramedics on the road. So here's our deputy fire chief's position, our training and logistics and operations division chief. This is a very critical position. As you can see, it will have the lion's share of the organization reporting to him or her. And we do feel that this is the right method and the right tool to move us in the future. And it will also allow for much expansion. The underlined areas here, as you can see, one captain, and one captain. These are the three captains that we need. The rest of these positions are unfilled or currently occupied within the structure of the fire department. So moving on to staffing. We did mention this group here of 10 positions, but that doesn't include the rest of the staffing that we truly need. In our evaluation of the department, we've identified 16 current vacancies. That's 2 battalion chiefs. They are the number 2 ranking officers in the department. We have 2 captains positions that fall directly under those battalion chiefs that are vacant. 3 lieutenant positions, 5 firefighters, 2 paramedics, 1 fire marshal, and of course, 1 fire investigator that was listed just above. So if you look at this current organizational chart of the department, here you have your fire chief in a darker color up top. and you have his direct reports. If you really look at span and control and the ability to control an organization, there is nothing in between the fire chief and his battalion chiefs here that are running the organization. There has to be, as we showed in this chart here, staff to facilitate and allow the organization to function. The chief is truly choked here and has no help, especially from an administrative standpoint, with everyone reporting to him. There has to be, in our opinion, relief, professional relief, placed into the department to allow the department to grow from this point forward. So in looking at staffing, according to a report that was done for this department in 2003, the department at that point in time responded to approximately 8,323 calls for service. In 2019, they nearly doubled that by responding to 16,066 calls for service. So over a 16-year period of time, doubling nearly our calls for service. And this truly doesn't get into the COVID and all the responsibilities that we have seen in 2020. Again, so this is important to show that what we have here cannot continue in its current configuration, funding level, and staffing level. It's just very clear. We also know that in 2003, there was a master plan that was completed. And one of the comments that I'll read to you here from that report was a recommendation to the BOCC to adopt a set of formal criteria by which decision-making regarding deployment of career personnel can be made. The results of the application of the project team's recommended standards would result in the need to employ at least 21 personnel at an annual cost of approximately $1 million. Based on what we have seen, Mr. Chair, between the 2003 report and today, other than the station going full-time in Satsuma and the new fire station constructed in East Palatka, there have been no measurable increases in funding and support for this department. Thus, the reason behind our recommendations. So from a staffing standpoint, we urge the board to please renew the push to hire all vacant positions. We want to develop 2 fully funded stations in the county, one in Station 6, which is currently funded, however, not to a full-time capacity, and then the other somewhere on the west side of the county. In order to accomplish this, we are asking the board to consider hiring 23 additional firefighters at a cost of $1.464 million. Now, this would be a recurring cost. This would place 11 of the 23 positions at Station 6 and 12 at a location somewhere to be determined on the west side of the county. Again, that would be based on calls for service, but we would say somewhere in the Interlochen area. So the ability at this time to house and staff at the west side is an issue if we were able to hire all 23 at this point in time. However, we believe that there are various ways that the fire leadership can handle this until a new station can be built. And a new station is recommended to be built on the west side of the county. So we want to continue to evaluate the growth and calls for service and fund, please, the minimum needs to keep this agency in a state of operational readiness. We feel that a standing fire EMS committee would be an excellent resource, and I'll talk about that later in the report. We do believe that in order to be competitive, to compete against the Flaglers, the Alachuas, the Duvals, the St. Johns, that we have to be competitive also in salary. And we're going to talk a little bit about some incentives that we think would be very helpful. It's imperative, this is a message from the committee, that staff and union work collaboratively to resolve the open union contract. One of our directions by you, Mr. Chair, and for the audience to understand is that we were not to get into union issues during this report. And so this is not delving into that, but we do see it as an issue that we would like to see that union contract handled one way or another in an expeditious manner. And finally, for this section, we recommend that the BOC place into service the budgeted 9th ambulance. It's truly needed. recruitment and retention of staff is also needed to fill those positions on those trucks. So, Mr. Chair, getting into the next portion of the report is capital improvements. We had an opportunity to review with the chief his current budget request, as well as his 5-year capital improvement plan. And the committee has recommended these items. Yes, there is a pretty big ticket item. Many of these items are one-time costs. However, as you can see here, it's the need to retrofit our stations. Many of them are in disrepair, both EMS and fire stations. As I mentioned before, the need for a fire station somewhere on the west end or the west side of the county. Comparatively to Station 6, it's $1.375 million, depending on where we are with costs. That may be more or less. Ambulance replacements, cardiac monitor replacements, medical equipment, station generators, fire trucks, help to the firefighters for the ISO rating, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, and then a fire generator replacement. Mr. Chair, if I may say this, this has been the standing position of the committee. We didn't want a pie-in-the-sky organization. We felt that these were the most critical needed replacements and infrastructures to help stabilize this organization and move us into the future. So we had other items that we looked at, but we felt that these were the most critical at this time. So, and we also, Mr. Chair, have had an opportunity to review the plan of the chief, and we want to just bring this to your attention that the last time a fire truck was purchased was in 2016, and the last ambulance purchased in 2018. Many of these vehicles have maintenance issues. Many of them have very high mileage on them, and there needs to be, in our opinion, an appropriate replacement and maintenance program, and we'll talk about that in the next few minutes also. Finally, here for capital outlay, we do want you, please, to direct staff to look at a good 5-year capital outlay request for this department, making sure it's consistent with our growth, our needs, and our abilities, and moving forward for the future. And that should include the acquisition of a 10th ambulance. The cost of an ambulance is about $325,000 in today's costs. That does not include staffing and a location for that 10th ambulance. And it's something that staff can certainly work on. Mr. Chair, the next point that I bring up is the National Fire Protection Association, their standard 1720. And if you had to look at, well, how do we get from point A to point B? This would be the document to do it. It doesn't cost us anything to review it. There will be costs associated with the implementation of some. The committee is not recommending at this point that you do the entire NFPA 1720, but take portions of it and put that into your growth process as we continue to move forward into the future. And it's important to look at from here. I just want to read you what this truly is. It provides clear guidance for administrations, organizations, operations of deployment, safety and health systems, and training for full-time staff and volunteers. It should be considered, as I mentioned, a roadmap or a comprehensive one for the standardization and response for this department, both now and into the future. And by adopting this standard, it will give us the ability to look at the department and evaluate it, much like an accreditation process. And that as we adopt these protocols, they will be building blocks to use for the future, but it will also be beneficial for our ISO ratings. And we'll talk about that in a second also. This committee is strongly in favor in making the recommendation that not one department, to include volunteers in the county, have a rating greater than a 7. As we all know, a lower ISO rating means benefits to property owners and businesses from an insurance standpoint. So that's a kind of in a nutshell of what NFPA 1720 is. Again, we do believe there will be reasonable costs associated with the implementation of these industry standards. And for your review, as well as those in the community, we have attached, it's quite a long document, but it's very comprehensive, and we believe it's going to be beneficial to the heartbeat of this organization that's been included with your report. Mr. Chair, we're moving through, we're looking at ISO ratings, and for the general viewing and listening public, an ISO rating is the Insurance Services Office, or we refer to as ISO. I'll just read this very quickly to provide an understanding of what it is. It's an independent, for-profit organization that scores fire departments on how they're doing against the organization's standards, so they can determine property insurance costs. After analyzing their data, the ISO assigns a public protection classification on a scale from 1 to 10. The higher the ISO rating, the better, with a 1 being the highest. A 10 would be the worst rating that you could have. The lower the ratings, again, the lower the insurance premiums potentially paid by residents and businesses. So, Mr. Chair, this is a breakdown of your ISO ratings countywide. The city of Palatka has done an outstanding job being an ISO 2 department. And as you can see, some of your volunteer fire departments have really stepped up to the plate and have done well with ratings. But you look at those ratings and say, really, what do they truly mean? And so, especially the split ratings. And so the ISO has developed split classifications, and they reflect the risk of loss more precisely. So I'm going to use an example as I have written in the report. A split classification of 4X and 4Y. The first number refers to the classification of properties within 5 road miles of the fire station and within 1,000 feet of a credible water supply. The second number, either the X or the Y designation, applies to properties within 5 road miles of a fire station, but beyond 1,000 feet of a credible water supply. Generally, a class 10 is properties beyond 5 road miles. Then getting into the need for additional stations, staffing, ultimately continuing our plan, your plan for water throughout the county will only increase our ISO ratings. So, congratulations to, some of these that have already obtained great ratings. But when you look at some of these others with 10s, those are issues that we know this organizational chart, the proposed staff, and the funding will fix. It's something that we believe is easily obtainable. So this is just a basic overview of where we are with ISO in the organization countywide. And again, we did vote unanimously to recommend that you mandate all departments under your control, to include volunteers, obtain the ISO rating of 7 or less countywide. So, Mr. Chair, we're moving into more of the end of the report. And I want to talk about the volunteer fire departments. And I do appreciate all of our volunteers that we had on the committee. They brought a wealth of knowledge. And if you look at the bios, most everyone has been a volunteer one time or another in their career, or maybe even still is. So they truly have been the backbone of our organization. However, much like our department, many have fallen in disrepair and have lost a lot of their volunteers. It's just something that we have seen trending, not only here, but throughout the fire service. And this has made some of our stations not only ineffective, some non-responsive at all to calls for service, which creates issues. And as you saw with the ISO rating, that's just one aspect of a failure to provide service in a certain area. And it then goes back to the full-time and other volunteers to make up that need. It is our recommendation to you, Mr. Chair, and all members of the board, that you mandate all volunteer fire departments, using your powers stated in Florida statutes, to have them fall under the chain of command of the Putnam County Fire Rescue Services leadership. This is endorsed by your volunteer fire chiefs and their association, and the committee does strongly feel that this will help. As I state in this next paragraph, it's our belief that everyone in the volunteer fire department, to include the paid staff, they need clear direction on budget, training, logistics, chain of command, and organization and operations. They still will maintain their own internal structures. They'll have their own rank structure, respond to calls, and work collectively, not only through training, but on the road answering calls. However, there are still other issues that need to be addressed. And in order for this to work, we would recommend that, and there's a typo there, I apologize, provide either in writing or through an MOU from each of these volunteers to allow the county to have access to any volunteer fire building and equipment at any time for official business. And again, this is endorsed by your volunteer fire chiefs and their association. It's important that we continue the relationship, but we have to increase our communication, which is broken at this time and in need of repair. This is something that may shock some, but we feel, supported again by the association and our chiefs, that it needs to happen. If a volunteer fire department does not come into compliance with these recommendations or any others put forward by the department, they should no longer be eligible for any calls for service and should forfeit any budgeted county equipment and funding. Now, it says a lot, but we mean what we say. If you're not going to do the job, then you should not receive this. And it's just a matter of principle. So we hope that's something that you'll look at. And if you have any questions about that, our committee can certainly help you with that. One last thing, from a funding standpoint or an incentive for our volunteers, it's really important. So although that we don't have a requirement, the county doesn't, to pay for our volunteers, we believe it's important that they receive some type of incentive. And in 2006, there was a plan put forward by the department, and it's currently in operation today. However, we want the board to direct staff to reevaluate this old plan and return with recommendations for your review and approval. A copy of the current volunteer services incentive program has been attached to this report for your review, as well as those in the public. I can't thank again, as a member of this committee, our volunteers, but much work needs to happen here, and they're prepared to step up and make things happen for us. Mr. Chair, from a logistics, supply, and maintenance, this first paragraph is very powerful for all of us. If there was ever a position that was needed in this department, it would be this position of logistics and supply coordinator. As I mentioned earlier, and I'll repeat here, far too many times throughout our discussions, we heard of accounts of waste and hoarding throughout the ranks of the paid and volunteered service. Stories of expensive bunker gear, the equipment that our firefighters wear being found on department shelves that were never used, still in the package, had expired, and we can't use that anymore, not even in training. So we also had issues of volunteers never returning equipment. And we saw that as being a failure of the process. And so what we have asked to address this problem is to do it in threefold process. First, hiring staff that could take care of this process for all of our equipment, our trucks, our staff, etc. And then this person would identify where storage would be throughout the county or in a unified location. That'd be left up to that person. But they would deal with both volunteer and paid staff. We also would want an issuance and collection system identified. If we're buying expensive $1,000 worth of equipment and issuing it to someone, we certainly want to get it back when it's expired or get it back when they leave. And I think having a simple process to augment what's already in place is vitally important. We do have a staff member that will be leaving soon in the current department. And due to that retirement, we are asking that this position be hired as soon as possible to help with that transition. So what will this do for us also? It's going to help us buy at a lower cost, we believe. It will standardize the equipment being issued so everyone has the same equipment or like equipment as it's purchased. We'll be able to review our equipment, our resources, and provide maintenance when necessary. So those are all vitally important comments that the staff or the committee wrote in this report. And we do believe that this position will truly pay for itself in a short period of time. And if I may, in this last part here is maintenance. Gary Warren has certainly brought to this, as well as everyone else, the need to have a thorough, robust maintenance program. Many of our trucks are not being maintained properly. Many of them have issues. There's not a consistency in staff going out and to repair those. The lack of oil changes and general repair continues to be a concern. So we do strongly recommend that you implement a functional fleet maintenance and equipment and repair program. We also recommend that staff be identified and assigned to prioritize this maintenance and repair of these vehicles. I understand that if a car needs to be repaired, it needs to be repaired, but if a fire truck needs to be repaired, it needs to take priority. And we have heard testimony that that's not generally been the case. So this to you will result in an increase to your budget. We don't know what it will be until you are able to pull it apart. But we do believe it will be a reasonable cost to ensure that as you look at a fire truck or an ambulance being able to respond to a call for service should be placed in paramount importance, and it should be repaired and serviced as needed. Mr. Chair, getting to the end, education and recruitment. I did speak about this earlier on with the staff member that we wanted to hire. We do have a lot of positions that are open. We also have a lot of positions that we're recommending you hire. And so there is a shortage of staff or employees nationwide, especially in the ranks of paramedics. So we know that we have to be creative. And we want this person, if hired, to work with our fire college, our local college, and St. John's River State College, and our high schools on recruiting our homegrown employees. We have plenty of talent here. Why should they go to another county when we can provide a great job, giving them an opportunity to learn about it in high school, even in the lower grades, moving through college if that's what they want, but then immediately transitioning from high school, from a vocational component, directly through our feeder program, much like you would see in a football or a baseball program, directly into our fire departments. We also believe that we have to work with the fire chief and the Palatka Fire Department, who is spearheading some of this already. And so we just believe that it's important that we have a robust recruitment and retention program, as well as educating the general public on what we do on a daily basis. As I mentioned earlier, we do recommend to keep our positions open and advertised and be diverse in that, not just keeping it here locally. We do believe also, as I mentioned, that in order to recruit from outside, we have to be competitive and maybe creating incentives such as housing relocation, bonuses. Again, that's for you to decide the amount, but identifying something that could be that hook to get someone to stay here, to see the beauty that we have to offer in this community. And there's a lot. So that's something that we urge you to look at, as well as an internship program that we can feed from and use. And finally, although it's there, it's in the budget, we would ask that the current awards appreciation program be expedited and utilized to start recognizing staff. I know that Administrator Suggs has been pushing for this. He's made it a priority, and we just wanted to see it to be a priority for this board moving forward from here. Getting here, interfacility transfers is something you've heard a lot about. And so it was a topic of discussion that we've had on more than one occasion. And really through looking at COVID-19 and how that's affected our department, we stopped doing interfacility transfers, and it's now being handled by an outside component. So anecdotally, we've looked at evidence that showed morale improving, stress being reduced of staff, while reducing our wear and tear in our vehicles going out of county, and providing that service back to the community. So when you move an ambulance from one area and take it out of county, that's an ambulance lost. Keeping those ambulances here, serving the hospital and all the locations that we do take our patients to, is of paramount importance, and we believe that should be done here. So based on this, it's our request that you no longer provide interfacility transfers to Putnam Community Medical Center for outside transport to medical facilities. We understand this may be a loss of revenue. However, it will allow the hospital to be free to contract for whomever they want to choose from, and it will allow us, a department, to focus on our needs. And finally, the last of our standing recommendations, our committee recommendations, is a standing fire rescue committee. We've learned a lot we're prepared to continue moving forward. So it's the recommendation of this committee that we stay on board, that you appoint this committee as your sounding board to the department, from the department, should I say, to you. We feel the findings in this report, coupled to what we've seen in the past, the need not to hire a consultant, is all in our favor to allow us to assist you in moving forward, allowing us to evaluate our recommendations and moving forward in the future. And we would recommend that you meet at least quarterly. So, Mr. Chair, in conclusion, and I do want to read this in its full, it's only a couple of paragraphs and I'll be finished. It is abundantly clear to each member of this committee that without immediate action, this broken department will continue to deteriorate. And we mean this, and hemorrhage qualified, dedicated employees. We cannot continue to see that happening. As mentioned above, we can't stress the urgency of it and operational as soon as possible. The committee is fully aware that although funding our suggestions today will not result in immediate resolution of the issues, it says my internet connection is unstable. Can you still see, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Jim, I still see you, and you break up a little bit, but we got you.
Okay, sir. So, so let me just finish. The committee is fully aware that although funding our suggestions today won't result in immediate actions or resolutions of the issues we've identified, there will be required time to select, vet, train, and finally place into service the staff needed and the equipment needed. And there will also be a considerable amount of time for the identification, design, and construction of new fire stations. This committee is not a new concept, as others have been commissioned by the BOCC in the past to evaluate many of the same issues we're addressing today. It cannot be said any clearer through earlier reports as well as through this report that swift, corrective, and decisive action needs to take place now. These recommendations will support this department by providing a basic platform for growth and help it become the flagship to carry this county into the future. Mr. Chair, this committee stands ready to assist you and the Board of County Commissioners, as well as staff, in answering any of your questions and assist at any workshops or special meetings concerning the implementation of these report recommendations. We again thank each of the commissioners and staff who have advocated for the creation of this fire rescue committee. So, Mr. Chair, with that, I certainly appreciate the opportunity to discuss this report. It's there in its entirety for your review. And Mr. Chair, we as a committee stand ready to assist you. So I turn the meeting back over to you and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Jim. And I'd also like to express my sincere thanks to the committee for meeting many long hours and coming up with a report. Commissioners, do we have any discussion on this report or questions? Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Jim, for your presentation. I do want to take time and thank all the committee members for such an outstanding report. Jim, you mentioned that in one part of your presentation, that there'd be $8.1 million in new funding. Is that a total, including the capital improvements, or was that just based on the chart that was presented? I see you shaking your head, but I'll wait for an answer.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, to answer Commissioner Harvey's question, that what did we say? It was $8.1 million was to include the current staffing needs now, as well as the future capital outlay costs, again, for fire stations, replacement of apparatuses. Some of this will be a one-time cost. Some of it will not. Some of it will be an reoccurring cost. But one thing, if I may, we, the committee, felt it wasn't our responsibility to identify funding streams for the board. We stayed away from that to allow you the opportunity to truly vet that as you would see fit, but to only present to you costs for these recommendations.
Thank you, Jim. And also, talking about the chart, it looked like there was a lot of top-heavy lieutenants, captains, assistants. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not in the fire service. I don't want anybody to think I am. I just want to know, you know, if this ever comes to light and we can make this happen, our rank and file, needs to be addressed too. The people actually doing down here at the starting level, we could hire all these people, but if they have nobody to manage, then that really wouldn't be good for Putnam County either at that point. Jim, I also want to say, you know, when you mentioned the ISO insurance ratings, it's also important for the community to know that it's not only based on the rate of insurance you pay, it's based on availability of companies coming into the area. You know, if you're an ISO 10 or 9 company, the company choices are limited. But if you're a 4 or a 2 or a 5, you might have 4 or 5 more companies that come into that area, and competition creates a lower price and a better product, in my opinion, because you might have one company that is pretty much a standard policy based on ISO rating, but lower the rating, the better the policy might be for the homeowner. So there's a lot of good things in the ISO. I know some people in the past have thought that didn't mean a whole lot, but it really does from an insurance standpoint. And truly, I like that idea. I also want to say congratulations to the volunteer fire departments who really took a big bite of the apple on this project. Because in years past, some of the things that were recommended now was not what they wanted. And the standardization, for example, the buying things just because they had money and they needed to spend it, you know, and now realizing that, and it wasn't just them, but realizing that we're all in this together at this point to make a better fire service for Putnam County. Thank God for our volunteers over the years. There's no doubt about that. And for men and women who are willing to leave their family in the middle of the night or their job in the middle of the day to go assist when those of us who can't or you know don't feel that calling to do that. And so I think the volunteers have really stepped up to the table on this report, and I commend them for doing that. And I like the idea of the standing committee going forward. I like the idea. I kind of recommended at first that the board gets to appoint some people. I'd probably like to reiterate that going forward, and keeping continuity on the board is very important. But I do think that a standing committee that can make recommendations to us of what they need. My whole family's been in fire service and public safety, but I haven't done that. And let me assure you that there's nothing I want more for this county than a fireman protected or emergency medical person protected when they go out on a call, as well as law enforcement. So Jim, I want to reiterate, and Mr. Chairman, as I wrap up my conversation and my observation, that I appreciate the hard work you did. I appreciate the opportunity that we were able to submit our comments. I appreciate the opportunity that this group took a lot of time to come back to us. And now the ball is in our court, and we are going to have to do something with it. Can we do something with the complete ball? I don't know that, but it surely is a place to get started, and it's a place that I look forward to future conversations. Jim and the committee, thank you for so much. And I want to thank our administrator for facilitating and getting this ball going too. It's important that we're all in the same boat, rowing in the same direction. We know where we want to go. It's just a matter of getting there. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the time and for the ability to say what's on my mind. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Rawls.
Thank you. Wow. Great job to everyone. This is a very well presented strategic plan. You guys have done a tremendous amount of work in a very short period of time. And I can't say thank you enough. I've been pushing for this conversation for more than a year, and I'm glad that we're finally having it. There's no sticker shock. Matter of fact, if there was any shock on my part, it's that the number is so low. I was prepared to hear closer to $12 to $15 million based on my observations, but no sticker shock whatsoever. The resumes, as I was reading through them, Quinn's resume is a year off because Quinn went to work for the Plaque Fire Department before I did. I went to work there in 1988. So Quinn, you get another year of service credit. Clue, I had no clue that you were a past, you were fire marshal, fire bureau chief. And I'm just wondering why we're not taking advantage of that and having you work in that capacity. But Richard, 34 years of uninterrupted service to the community. I think that really needs to be spelled out. When I got down to looking at Chad's, I thought, it was so few words because Chad, you've got an enormous amount of experience, and Jim did point out that you got over 300 years of experience collectively. But I wish that the public knew what I knew about these gentlemen and what not only their experience, but their capabilities are in providing service to the community, because they've all really done a great job. John Chapman, Gary Warren, David Birch, it starts off with Wayne McLean, and I couldn't think of a better person to have at this conversation than to have him here at this time. He had actually come to me previous to this committee with some ideas, and he was passionate about trying to fix this problem going back several years. So it happened years before this committee. But thank you very much, Mike Perry. Again, you guys are short selling yourselves on your resumes, but a lot of experience here, a lot of input. So one of the things that was mentioned was the ambulances. This morning, I passed a Putnam County ambulance on my way in, and then I got passed by a Putnam County ambulance going to a call. But they're driving the big commercial heavy chassis trucks. We've got, 3/4 of our roads are unpaved. We're tearing these trucks up. What is our status right now as we speak? Are we looking at going to the lighter weight F450s, 550s, or the Chevrolet equivalent or Dodge equivalents? Anybody?
I know Chief Romay is on the phone, on the call. Maybe he could best answer that, Mr. Chair.
That is correct. We're looking at that, the various, whether it's Ford or Chevy but that style vehicle is exactly what we're looking at. And
Okay.
Also four-wheel drive capable.
Right. That was okay. So, but those are nowhere near $350,000 a piece, are they?
Once you get them outfitted with the stretchers and all of the things, you're approaching that amount.
So when we're rechassing, what are we looking at?
The 280, it depends on the chassis price at the time, but you're looking at the 280-ish range.
Okay. When you were talking about the non-emergency transport, and please forgive me, I actually lost, Comcast had an outage for about 5 minutes during your presentation, but I did read your what you had emailed us, so I don't think I missed anything. I was approached by Dr. Malanek from Courtesy Transport, and his question to me was, why were they, as a local company, not given the opportunity to provide non-emergency transport in Putnam County? Was that discussed at all during the committee meetings?
Mr. Chair, I can say that we didn't delve into what company or who was responsible for it. Chief Romay made a decision. I think he could best elaborate as to why we deviated away from providing those transports. But the committee's recommendation was to allow the hospital to contract to who they want to get the best service that they need. I would defer to Chief Romay to answer the question of why we stopped providing that service.
No, the question is not why we stopped providing it. His question was simply, and I, out of ignorance, did not know that they were capable of ALS transport. I thought they were strictly a BLS transport company, but he assured me that they are ALS capable. But his question was, why were they not given the opportunity? Apparently, we're allowing Century to use one of our stations periodically for their crew to quarter in Putnam County. But it was just a question that came to me from someone, from Dr. Malanek. Is there an answer to that question, Quinn?
Yeah, we The only thing we did is communicated to the CEO of the hospital that due to the COVID, we were not going to be able to continue the amount of transfers we were doing. The hospital then at that time went out and sought their own company or whatever to do that. We did not get in the middle of suggesting or, directing. It was the hospital's choice on who they do business with, because they're actually paying them, I believe.
So there's no certificate of necessity issued to Century?
No, the governor waived all of that early on in March for the entire state. So, and
Okay.
as long as the executive orders are in place, that's still waived.
All right. When you guys were considering the expenditures, I know you said that y'all weren't looking for sources of revenue. Was there any discussion at all about BTRs and fire inspections?
Mr. Chair, I don't remember. We may have talked about that. We did have a presentation provided to us by the Deputy County Administrator, Matt Reynolds, on some financial concepts, different funding mechanisms. That may have been discussed, but it wasn't a direction that we felt as a committee that we needed to travel down. We wanted to focus on our findings and present that to you, and just stay away from the different funding mechanisms.
Okay. You may have mentioned it when I was offline for a few minutes, but was there any discussion about a step and grade plan or the merits of it, or are y'all pro it, against it?
Mr. Chair, to respond to that question, that would really fall into the current union negotiations, and we did not, our charge was to stay away from that. So we feel that to be competitive, that the board should do what it can to be competitive, as we stated in our document, but that's as far as we went with that.
Okay, so that y'all, I'll take that as a yes, that y'all are in favor of the step and grade, pursuing a step and grade plan, not against it.
No, Mr. Chair, that's not correct. We just didn't address that and take a position as a committee.
Okay. Well, just for everybody's information, there was we did have some strategic planning sessions last year. We're still waiting for the results of that, but part of the results of that came back in the form of a employee survey, and there was a recommendation by them to have a step and grade plan countywide, not just for the fire department. And I'm personally in favor of that. So the system that you guys are proposing obviously is a hybrid system that would include volunteers, and I'm very much in favor of that. Met with volunteer fire chief several times, and I know they were in favor of it. I can't express my enthusiasm and my excitement for Putnam County. This commissioner is prepared to move forward, locate the funding sources as necessary. This is part of our requirement as commissioners to provide public safety. And I think this can's been kicked down the road long enough. We need to act on it now. So I appreciate the candor and the tenor of the synopsis. I was really happy at the end when you guys just put it in very bold terms. This needs to happen. I'm hearing a lot of chatter on the streets, and a lot of stuff from the folks that work for us, and there is that we're on a ticking time bomb. I really feel like we are. We could lose some very important people to us, and really be up the creek. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Commissioner Rawls. Commissioner Pickens.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I want to echo Commissioner Harvey's and Commissioner Rawls' sentiments. Thank Jim Trano and the whole committee for their hard work and having to deal with the Zoom meetings to finish this thing up with the COVID epidemic, and also Wayne McLean and Mike Perry for their efforts. I really am glad that the volunteer fire system is included in this. The one question I have with the organizational chart, Jim.
Yes, sir.
Is this like what some other, Putnam County is different. I would call it unique. Is this organizational chart something that was truly just put together by the committee themselves, or does this mirror some other counties that are maybe using this system, or is it modified, or can you answer that?
I can, Mr. Chair, to answer the commissioner's question. It was a hybrid. We looked at another county and a study done for that county. We felt that the organizational structure was very conducive. We changed some terminology. We changed some positions throughout. We included our existing positions in it. So it is a hybrid. And I think the most important part, it provides that leadership and the command and control under the chief down through the organization to take care of staff, the issues on the road, and allow that process to function effectively going back up to the top. So it is a hybrid process. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Jim. This probably would go to Quinn. Quinn, are there any positions that are on this chart that are funded in your budget but not filled? Is that a reasonable question?
Yes, sir. The only two looking at the chart right now are the fire marshal and fire inspector. The other positions, other than the paramedics and EMTs, that in the EMS, fire and EMS unit side, where you've got those that are not funded at 16 but are not filled, but the fire marshal and the fire inspector are the other.
Okay, all right, thank you. And again, hats off to Jim and the whole committee. Just thank you for a great job, and look forward to maybe having a workshop dedicated to this where we can start see how we can move forward with this. But thank everybody so much.
Thank you.
Any other comments, Commissioner Goddard? Were you waving
Yes.
at me, sir?
Yes, sir. I am trying to see you. Yeah, all I can say is kudos to everybody. We've been looking for this. We've been needing this, and I think we put a very good board together to get this accomplished. Now it is up to us to sit down and look at this thing. Do we have a tentative date of sitting down with a workshop on this?
We don't yet, sir, but we can make one. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, that's it. I just want to tell everybody that this is great. I have nothing else to add. All the commissioners, we've been wanting this, we've been needing this, and it's great to see.
Okay, is any other questions before I take a short recess to make the staff happy? I saw you smile, Laura. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute recess.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman, if
sir.
I could just say one more thing real quick.
Okay.
I just want to thank the volunteer association, all the fire chiefs, all the volunteers that came together, because Commissioner Harvey alluded to this. These guys have come in with such a great spirit of cooperation, and that's really imperative to making this work. And it's obvious in what the committee pulled together here, but just want to say thank you very much to all of our volunteers as well, because going forward, and I'm going to make this perfectly clear, going forward, we need them. We really need the volunteers in the worst way, because they're going to be a majority participant in this. And just want to say thank you very much. And again, thanks to everybody. This is really, I'm excited.
Thank you, Commissioner Rawls, for your comments. Is there anybody else that needs to make a comment before we take a 5-minute recess? Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute recess.
Mr. Perry, Larry Harvey here. Will you give me a call later on today? You're muted.
Can you hear me now, Commissioner?
I can, sir.
I'll be happy to. I'm in North Carolina right now, so it'll take me just a moment to catch up on some calls that I'm doing, but I'd certainly, I'll call you just as soon as possible.
That's fine, sir. Thank you.
Is there a particular number that you'd like me to call you at?
Just whatever number. It's unrelated to this, so.
Okay.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah, I look forward to talking to you, Commissioner. Thank you.
Okay, if we have everybody back, we'll go ahead and reconvene the Board of County Commissioners meeting from a recess. And may I suggest to the commissioners, and I'm definitely open for any direction from you on how you want to proceed forward on the report. My suggestion would be to turn it over to the administration. Let them review it. We got this thing this morning, so we let them review it. As soon as they can come up with a recommendation, I'll call a special meeting or along with another one, and we'll go ahead and hear it and try to come up with some kind of a solution or some kind of a suggestion or recommendation on how to move forward with the suggestions that have been made here and what is doable now and what we have to do. This is not a 30-day deal. This is a try to get to that over a period of time. And so once maybe that they can come up with a plan, I know that at this point that they can probably start looking for the executive director of fire and EMS services that they haven't hired until this point, because I think they were kind of trying to wait on this. And so now that we see the structure that needs to go, maybe before any additional hires are done, they can start moving into that new structure, that new organizational chart that the committee has recommended as part of what we're going to do forward. So if that suits the commission, I think that's what we should do. I think we should turn it over to the administration and see if they can come up with some recommendations on moving us in this direction. Is that okay with everybody?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Rawls.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think that we should set up a meeting sooner than later to discuss what funding options are. I think that's going to be the white elephant in the room, is we're going to have to be able to come up with some sort of funding opportunity for this. And I don't know that administration would be able to do that on their own. That would be something that we have to take on ourselves.
Yes, Commissioner Rawls, I don't disagree, but I do think that they need to come up with a plan to move forward. That's their job. So we've got just a second, Commissioner Rawls, and I'll listen to you long as you want, but let's try not to interrupt one another. I think what we need to do is let the administration come up with a recommendation and on how to move this forward using this report as a design to start moving in that direction. And until they come up with how much funding we need at what point, I think it would be moot for us to sit down and have a discussion about the fire tax or whatever fees you want to raise or whatever until we get some kind of an idea of what the first step funding is going to be. And then I know that we have over $400,000 of dollars left in the fire fund reserves that we could use towards this. So there are some fundings available at this time to get us started in that direction. And I hope that we can start using the organizational chart redo that was presented in this, at least whatever part of it we can get in as soon as we possibly can. But that still, again, needs to be a plan by staff of how to implement it and move it forward. Commissioner Rawls, did you have additional comments, sir?
Yeah, what I was just trying to simply say is we have a target number. Whether it's $8 million or $10 million doesn't matter. Staff is not going to be able to come up with much of a plan unless they know how much money is available. We have an arduous task ahead of us. If we're going to be funding this thing at $8 million, then we need to be able to come up with $8 million. We have a budget in front of us. I just think we should start taking a look at everything right now and be prepared to have the conversation. In my previous conversations with Matt Reynolds and Mr. Suggs, they were apprehensive about coming to the board with recommendations to fund things like this because they don't feel like it's their position to have to do that. The tough conversation is with the 5 of us. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rawls. How does the commission want to handle this? Evidently, Commissioner Rawls wants to start tomorrow, and I think we need to have direction from staff first. Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's no doubt that we all probably want to start tomorrow, but that's not realistic. So I think going into letting staff handle this at the beginning, getting our public service director, if that's the title of it, in play. We got to start crawling before we walk. And truly, if the system is that broken, then it's gonna require some immediate surgery and attention and rehabilitation and recoupment. So I think currently, let staff come up with a plan. Let's go ahead and hire that. Let staff go ahead and go out looking for that public service director, whatever the name of that person is, the top person. And let's start having that conversation then, because I agree with Commissioner Rawls. We got a lot of work to do. And believe me, I ran many years ago, and this item came up, and we've got to address it. I think this is the board that can make this happen. And but I think getting staff in charge right now and then getting that person in hire would be the best beneficial route for the topic at hand. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. Commissioner Pickens?
Yeah, Chairman Turner, I agree with, with Commissioner Rawls and Commissioner Harvey. I do believe staff needs to review this. And they probably can identify what funds are available now, and then maybe help us determine, how to move forward with whatever funding we're going to try to do. That is a big number. I like Mr. Rawls says, it didn't shock him. It shocked me a little bit. But this is not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen by the end of the year. But I think, as Commissioner Harvey says, we get that new position hired, the public safety coordinator, and then let's start moving forward as a commission, as a group. And I think we need to make sure that we nominate, or however we're going to move that committee, put them intact, and let's start moving slowly towards pushing this thing forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pickens. Commissioner Goddard, were you waving at me, sir?
Yes, sir, I was. I think we do need to let staff look at it. This was a lot to absorb all at once. We knew most of what was coming in. I love the fact that they put it together so well, but we do need to have them look at it. We're not going to be able to bite the whole elephant. We know that, but we do want to look at different ways that we can fund this with what we have without, I know we may end up doing that, but I don't want to go into Rawls adding taxes and fees and putting more burden on the people if we don't have to. I want to see what we can do inside our own house and be able to fund this thing. So I'm looking forward to sitting down, having a large workshop to sit and see what we can do at now and in the future.
Okay, so Commissioner Goddard, or is that, am I to believe that you want to let staff look at it and make a recommendation on how to move forward?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the Commissioner Harvey, would you give us a motion, sir, on that we would move forward and let staff take a look at it and move forward and get suggestions, recommendations from them?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we allow staff to look over this fire committee report and come up with a plan of action on implementation, and also hiring, allowing staff to go out and search for the hiring of that public safety director.
Thank
I'll
you, sir.
second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Harvey and a second by Commissioner Goddard. Is there any further discussion?
Under discussion.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Rawls.
I'm looking at the proposed organizational chart. I don't see the position you're talking about, and I thought we said we were going to try to follow this. This sounds like we're going to step out and create another position that's not recommended by the committee.
Commissioner Rawls, this position has been recommended for some time now. It's the executive director of I think Administrator Suggs wants to talk about it. Go ahead, Mr. Suggs.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it. And yes, the org chart may not recognize that position that's currently being discussed, but on page 6 of the 17-page report, the paragraph near the bottom of the page says that it was not included simply because the committee knew that this position had already been created and was being discussed. So that position is a position of need.
Where does it fall in the organizational chart?
The position of Public Safety Director falls as one of the 5 executive committee members that was approved by the board some time back. We're currently advertising for that position. We knew the report was coming today, and we knew that the committee was fully in support of it. So we're just going to wait the advertised period and interview the qualified candidates and hopefully pick the most qualified candidate to help us get through this 17-page recommendation that everybody recognizes as certainly a need for Putnam County. They've lost my feet, I'm sorry. So the point is that we're, this position, I don't know where they lost my feet at. So Commissioner Rawls, Mr. Chairman, I'll back up a little bit.
I heard you.
Okay, it falls in the executive committee hierarchy as far as the position of the executive management team, which will certainly be the oversight for moving this plan forward for fire rescue.
So I guess my question is, would that not just be putting another layer of management on top of management? If I'm looking at this organizational chart where it starts out with fire chief and I put the executive position above that, isn't that just another layer of bureaucracy basically? I mean, what would the fire chief be at that point?
I think maybe you're talking semantics, Commissioner Rawls. If you want to take the top of the list here for fire chief, Terry, would you mute, please? If you'd take that fire chief and scratch it out and put on their executive director for
okay.
fire emergency services, it would be pretty much the same thing.
Okay,
it's just semantics.
Okay, I was trying to get a visual, and all I could see was literally an extra layer of red tape that we wouldn't need to fund. So okay, so the fire chief's position will be called the executive director of emergency operations, or?
I don't think that it matters what they call it if they call it Pinocchio, as long as it has certain duties assigned to that position. I think that's what counts most of all here, is that we assign the committee's recommendation to the different positions. So if we could not focus on what a certain position is called, but the position actually exists, I think is the most important thing. Is that not correct, Jim?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Did you hear my question? I said it doesn't really matter what we call a position as long as the actual position and the responsibilities that go along with it exist. Is that not correct?
That is correct. That's a comment that we made in our report to you. It doesn't matter salary as long as it's consistent, and naming is left up to the department to include the administrator to determine the appropriate nomenclature for the title.
Okay. Did that help, Commissioner Rawls?
Well, no, because on page 6, it says that the director, one that can provide leadership and oversight to the fire chief. So it sounds to me like we're going to have a position over the fire chief, and I'm questioning whether or not we need that with this new org chart that we've been given. That's all.
Yes, sir. Okay. Well, thank you for their comments. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, it's 4-1. Commissioner Rawls voted opposed to the motion to send it to staff. And so it was 4-1. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Commissioner Pickens.
Lou Wright wanted to make a comment.
Okay. Mr. Wright, did you want to have a comment? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. How are you doing today?
Fine, sir.
Hey, first of all, I would like to say whoever picked, Mike Perry and Wayne McLean to this committee, I give you kudos for that. We learned so much from each of them and their professionalism that they brought to this committee, from the outside. I would like to say thank you to whoever picked them. And thank you to each of them because they're true professionals, in our community. I would also like to say that the committee showed true professionalism and commitment together. We worked hard to come up with a solution, to guide the fire rescue into the future. And Mr. Chairman, thank you personally, for allowing this committee to happen. And thank you, Mr. Rawls, Mr. Goddard, Mr. Pickens, and Mr. Harvey for allowing us to come to you today to be able to, show you what this report stands for. And hopefully this document will not go unnoticed, but be implemented, to make Putnam great among the fire rescue services within Northeast Florida. And that's all I got to say. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Wright, for being on the committee as well as attending with us this morning. With that being said, we're going to move on to presentation 5C, which is countywide projects by Mrs. Young. Mrs. Young.
I'm going to provide you a snapshot update on numerous projects countywide this morning. The list is not intended to be all-inclusive list of every project or initiative underway by county departments. It is intended to give you a Cliff Notes version of the project status for those which have the most significant impact or are of most concern to our citizens, commissioners, and/or administration. If you'd like additional details about a particular project or you would like a project added to the list, please email me and I will take care of that. We're going to start first with the administration. The administration is still working through the strategic plan process. The report from the 2-day planning workshop has already been disseminated. The mission, vision, and value statement has been established. Employee surveys results have been gathered, disseminated, and reviewed. The strategic operational plans and goal metrics are being developed for each of the 14 priority objectives identified by the BOCC. Administration also has the census going on. As of June 9th, Putnam County has a 49.7 response rate. The state average response rate is 59.5 and the national average response rate is 62.40. Administration also is engaged in the CARES Act Business Assistance Program. The BOCC approved the Business Assistance Program on Friday, July 24th. Administration is working through design and development of program specifics and expects to have a report to review with the BOCC in August. The Animal Control Facility, the BOCC discussed the conceptual floor plan at the June workshop. Revisions were requested. Ms. Suarez is working with the drafter to provide revisions on the conceptual floor plan. Procurement will be contacted when they are ready to explore procurement steps. The library has the Melrose Library expansion under work. The final review of the construction documents have been approved and the architect is drafting the documents needed for the bid cycle. The Port Authority Parks and Recreation has the Project Play / Splash Pad project. The project is complete. We are awaiting a ribbon cutting coordination with the Rotary of Palatka. I do believe we've narrowed that down to a couple of dates, and we will be looking forward to that ribbon cutting expected in August. The Parks and Recreation has the Georgetown Park project underway. The pavilion, playground, and picnic table have been installed and are complete. We're exploring options of boat ramp locations. Public Works has completed some mowing. Mr. Bernstein and Mr. Gerardin have volunteered to attempt to survey and delineate wetlands in order for us to move forward. The Parks and Recreation is also overseeing the Flora Home Park historic building renovation. The Flora Home Historic Association is raising funds to complete the clubhouse renovation. The county has completed the removal of the concrete slab as agreed upon. The Flora Home Parks Association expects the clubhouse renovation work to begin in February of 2020, but they do have volunteer crews working steadily on different aspects of that project. The Planning Department has the comprehensive plan update underway. Planning workshops continue to be held to identify issues, concerns, and obtain input for improving the existing comp plan. The Planning Commission has completed a first review of goals, objectives, and policies, all of the 9 elements of the plan. A markup version and proposed changes to the GOPs will be reviewed by the Planning Commission at its regularly scheduled August 12th meeting. Proposed changes to the future land use map are being drafted by staff to be submitted to the Planning Commission for review. The Planning Department also, Planning and Building, also has the Citizen Serve online permitting project ongoing. Contract for services were executed and we are now in the implementation phase. Internal and external teams meet weekly to review and complete implementation of modules. We are currently in the process of implementing the building permitting, specifically the permitting fees phase. The next phase will be the contractor's licensing model. Public Works has completed the project of the County Road 207A bridge over Dog Branch Creek. Public Works has completed the project of Dirt to Pave 2019. All roads, the construction has been completed. The final punch list and quality checks are in process. The Public Works Department has a Main Street sidewalk construction in Crescent City project underway. Construction is ongoing. Construction to date is roughly 35% complete, and we estimate a completion date in October of 2020. Public Works is assisting with the Fort Gate Ferry Landing project. Mr. Roberts is leading that. FDEP permits were revised successfully. The Army Corps of Engineer permit revision is still pending. Pile load calculations are needed. Mr. Roberts has gotten engaged an engineer to stamp the plans and finalize the load calculations, and we're expecting that would take about 30 days. Public Works has Ashley Lake paving going on. The paving of the road is substantially complete as of today. Public Works is working on the Barton Bridge project. Design is complete. FDOT is reviewing the plans, and we are in the process of securing the needed right-of-way. Public Works is working on a GIS mapping system of mowing and grading units. We're piloting some devices on various pieces of equipment. Data gathering on test equipment is in process, and modification to the process and mapping displays are being finalized. Once the system is fully operational, IT and Public Works estimates a 45-day implementation timeframe to be fully integrated. Public Works has Lake Susan Road Phase 2 going. Design is underway. Design plans are 60% complete, and they have been submitted and reviewed. Construction is scheduled to begin in December of 2020 and project completion by June of 2022. Public Works has a St. John's Avenue resurfacing from Palm Avenue to the CSX crossing. Design is underway. The 30% design plans have been submitted and reviewed. Public Works has the road resurfacing for fiscal year 20 underway. The contracts have been executed and construction is currently underway. Public Works is working on an East Palatka wastewater treatment plant expansion. The expansion was completed, which involves installation of the lift station at Paradise Point. The septic to sewer individual tie-ins are underway. Eltsey Drive tie-in is complete, and Horse Landing tie-in is scheduled to be completed by October of 2020. Public Works is working on the County Road 310 bridge rehabilitation. We sent rank order recommendations to the last BOCC meeting, and contract negotiations are underway to secure that design professional. Septic to sewer conversion is underway with Public Works. Horse Landing and Eltsey Drive held a community informational meeting / sign up. Approximately 89 residents have signed up to date and committed to the conversion. Public Works has submitted the funding application to the St. Johns River Water Management District. Grants are expected to be approximately $1.27 million. It is a competitive grant with the surrounding counties, and we expect to hear the outcome in the next few months. We have received a notification that our project was scored and ranked 11th out of 45 statewide projects. The official approval, however, is contingent upon approval of the 2021 adopted budget. Dirt to Pave 2020 is now ready to bid. The survey work has been completed, and we expect it to hit the street by the end of August. The County Road 315 crosswalk has construction underway. The East Palatka drainage and flooded mitigation, the amendment to the agreement is in process to allow work in critical area located on state property. And then the bid package is in process. St. John's Avenue drainage improvement, State Road 19 to County Road 309C. Design is in process and discussion on the retention pond location is ongoing. St. John's Avenue bike trail, Besh and Smith Services was awarded that contract. We're awaiting the bonds before the notice to proceed can be issued. Road restriping and pavement marking project for fiscal year 20. The bids were issued, but submittals were far above budget. The project will be resolicited in August. Cell 4A of the construction this is for the sanitation department. The contract for services has been executed and design work is in process. Communication with DEP regarding discussion of options to provide value add alternatives to original schematic design is underway. Additional conversations are being explored to allow permitting of a borrow pit that would allow us to use on-site soils as long as they meet specifications. We expect to start construction in the third quarter of 2020, and construction is estimated to take about 6 months to complete. Thank you very much, Commissioner. I'll take any questions that you may have.
Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, Julianne, you mentioned the Dirt to Pave 2020. You said the bids will go out August, but here on your report it says July, and we're at the end of July.
Yes, sir, no problem. You're going to get a new report.
Okay, thank you. That's all the question I have. Oh,
Thank
no,
you.
I don't.
Yeah,
Hang on.
go ahead, sir.
I have a comment to make. On the mowing, and it says the IT, they're also working with that National Association of Counties app called Test It. Okay, so when the mowers are out and throughout the county, they can hit that app at different locations and they can see what broadband services are available at those locations. So IT is working with Public Works mowing crew to kind of start that so we can have a baseline of where we're at, because those mowers pretty much go everywhere throughout the county. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. Ms. Young, I would like to add one Public Works project to the list. You've got the phase 1 of the East Palaca Water Mitigation Project, where the one that they're working on with the state to be able to clean a little portion of that. But we also, there's a phase 2 that we're starting to design on for the legislative appropriation that's coming this year. So if you could also update us on where we are on that design as we go, I would appreciate it.
Yes, sir, I'll be happy to do that.
Is there any other comments from commissioners at this time? Okay, evidently I skipped a comment from one of our committee members, Mr. Wayne McLean. I understand you had some comments, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I can wait to public comments, or I can do it now.
You can do it right now, sir. I appreciate you serving on the committee, and I apologize for missing you waving at me.
Oh, that's okay. No problem. Well, first of all, Mr. Chairman, thank you for appointing me to the committee. Of all the community activities I've been involved in over the years, this to me was the most humbling and the most important. And my only comment is this: I know staff has to review this, but I did not hear a date certain of when staff would be coming back to the commission. And my concern is, in the process of hiring this new person, that person's got to get on board. They got to be familiar with the organization. They got to then look at the recommendation. And I just want the commission to know that I would like to put a time certain that staff has to get back to you. That's just a suggestion, sir.
Yeah, and I appreciate that suggestion, Mr. McLean, and it's a valid suggestion, but I would like to give them at least more than 3 hours to look at a report before they have to tell me how long they think it'll take to implement the program. So I want to be fair with this, along with trying to expedite it.
So noted, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. And again, thank you for being on our committee. With that being said, we're going to move into the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that we wish to pull today? Commissioner Harvey?
I have none, sir.
Commissioner Rawls? Commissioner Rawls?
I'm here, I'm sorry.
I said, do you have anything you want to pull from the consent agenda, Commissioner?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goddard?
I have none.
Commissioner Pickens?
I have none.
Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Mr.
I'd
Chairman,
like to make
I
the
move
motion.
approval of the consent agenda items A through E.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Harvey and a second by Commissioner Goddard that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries unanimously. Next, we're going to move to item number 7, the presentation of the tentative budget, which is, I assume, is the same one that we were presented before. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, I have made some changes to the budget based upon the input that the commission gave at that workshop.
Okay. Well, could you start with the changes, or is that what you're
Sure.
planning on doing?
Yeah, I mean, there were just a couple of changes. I summarized them in the cover sheet of the agenda item. For example, I went back and I included the 3% across the board increase for Board of County Commission staff. And then I also increased allocations for constitutional officers for their estimated 3%, such as clerk of court, supervisor of elections, and property appraiser. I removed the transfer to the transportation fund from the general fund, and adjusted the capital outlay, which we'll discuss, before the final budget adoption in September. So all of those changes were incorporated into this tentative budget.
Okay. Do we have any questions of Matt at this time? Okay. So I guess the tentative suggestions that he included in the changes, we're all good with that to move it forward to the next step. Is that what I'm presuming?
Yes, sir.
I got a question.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls.
How will we address, are we looking at anything in this year's budget for what we just heard from the Fire and EMS Committee?
Today was the first that I saw the report from the committee. So at this point, there is nothing in the proposed budget, or at least this version of the budget, but the final, technically the tentative budget will be adopted at the first meeting in September, and the final budget will be adopted at the second meeting in September. So some changes, if directed by the commission by then, can be incorporated into the budget.
And also, Commissioner Rawls, I think that they showed us in our last budget presentation that we had 400 and something thousand available at this time in fire to start working on some of these suggestions, as well as other funding solutions they may come up with.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Do we need a motion on to pass this, commissioners?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yes.
we do. Yes, sir. Commissioner Goddard, you making one?
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the tentative budget and set the proposed millage rates.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Have a motion by Commissioner Goddard and a second by Commissioner Pickens. Is there any further discussion?
Under discussion?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Rawls.
This is with the knowledge that we're potentially going to change this with to reflect some of the conversation we had for the fire and EMS, correct?
That's with whatever the decisions the commissioners decide to do in the future. Yes, sir. This commissioner's not going to be at this point until staff comes up with a recommendation. I would rather see what that is and how to implement it. So yes, sir, we could make changes anytime between now and September. Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a point of order here. The first item we were discussing needed nothing done, but the second item is requiring the millage rate and all that stuff. But I heard in Commissioner Goddard's his motion that he was setting the millage rate at the same time. Is that correct, Commissioner Goddard?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So have you got a problem with that, Commissioner Harvey, or Matt, do you have a comment?
No, I just wanted to point out that the motion that Commissioner Goddard made is correct under that second agenda item. The recommended action is by motion accepting the tentative budget rate and setting the proposed millage rate. And just to recap, we're setting the maximum millage rate. So the proposed millage rate is the same as it is this fiscal year, 9.5946. And so the commission in September will be able to adopt a millage rate that is lower than that, but we will not be able to go above that millage rate.
Well, Mr. Chairman, may I ask another point of order here? If we're doing the next agenda item, then we need to really include in the motion the date and time of the meeting as presented in that.
It needs to be a separate motion.
Yes.
It has to be a separate motion.
Yes, sir.
The date, time, and place has to be a separate motion.
Has to be correct. So
Yes.
Commissioner Goddard making this motion for just the budget, and the proposed millage rate is correct. And then after this, we would do another motion to set the date, time, and place for the tentative budget hearing in September.
Matt, you are correct. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the table at this current time. Is there any further discussion on it?
Under discussion,
Commissioner Rawls?
we're setting the maximum millage rate, and that includes the MSTU for the fire, correct?
MST.
Yes. Yes, the
Yes.
1.1 mils. Mhm.
And I'm just wondering if we shouldn't slow it down a little bit. If, you know, we've still got 3 months left in the year, almost, and a lot of work to do. And I just wonder if we shouldn't take that off the table right now.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
can I
Commissioner.
clarify?
Yeah, Matt, please.
Per trim guidelines, we have 35 days from July 1st when the final property valuation is given to us, and that is per state guidelines. So within 35 days, we have to adopt a maximum millage rate.
What is that date?
August 4th, next Tuesday.
No, gives us a week. We could be shooting ourselves in the foot for the next 12 months is what I'm saying.
And what do you think we're going to get done with it in the next week? We haven't done with it already in the last 3 months working on it, Commissioner Rawls.
There's been no consideration given to this report that we were just presented. That's
I
what Matt said.
understand, but even the committee themselves and Mr. Troyana, the presenter on the committee, made the comment, this is not going to happen in 30 days. It's got to take place, and we move in that direction over a period of time. I mean, we couldn't, if you put all the money up tomorrow to fund every position, they're already 12 or 15 short. So it's not like that they could go out and hire firemen and EMS and paramedics tomorrow. It's going to take some programs in order to get that done also. So we have a motion on the floor. Commissioner Harvey, do you want to comment another before we vote on the millage rate?
No, sir, I was going to call the question. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, we have a 4-to-1 vote. Commissioner Rawls dissenting that we set the maximum millage rate. And we need a motion at this time that specifies the date, time, and place for the tentative and final budget hearings. Do you have those dates set?
I have them.
Okay, you have them, Commissioner Goddard.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we set the date and time place for the tentative budget hearing as Tuesday, September 8th, 2020 at 5:05 p.m. in the boardroom, I assume. And we'll set the date and time for our final budget hearing and adoption of this final budget and millage rate as Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020 at 5:05 at the boardroom.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Goddard and a second by Commissioner Harvey. Did you catch that motion, Sarah? Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it, and motion carries unanimously. With that, we're going to move into our codes enforcement hearings. Before we do, I think somebody told me, Laura, that you had an email for public comment from earlier and that just got in afterwards?
I do.
Okay, what is it?
It's Yvette Reyes, P.O. Box 253, Bostwick. Who determines what citizens pay for waste management versus fire? Why do we pay more for waste management than for fire when fire actually does something for us, the citizens? Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank her for her comment. We're working on that for sure. Code enforcement. We're going to move into item 9A on the list, which is Autumn Leaf Enterprises, and I'm assuming Thomas is going to take this, but I don't see Thomas. Do we know where Thomas is, or code enforcement?
It should be the planning and development.
Okay.
In the room there.
They're muted.
And
Or not.
I'm not seeing anybody there either, so.
I'll walk over there.
I think the camera's pointed too high.
Yeah, where you at?
The camera's not working.
Our camera's not working, sir. I'm here.
Okay, that's good enough. I see you now. I see your phone where you called in. You are on as planning and development. Is there just your camera's not working on that picture?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Or would you give us a presentation on 9A, please? The Autumn Leaf Enterprises fine reduction request, please.
Yes, sir. The address is 123 Jackson Terrace, Interlachen, Florida. The violation was unsafe mobile home. The original amount is $3,085.50, and the total cost for enforcement action was $2,474. The request from the property owner that this property was acquired due to the previous property owner not willing to pay the fines and fees on the property. It was their intention to just pay off the tax lien, and due to the lack of buyers, they inherited the property. They had done a lien search and missed it for some reason, and want to sell the property, so now they're requesting a fine reduction. And property is in compliance.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you. Thomas, is that picture of that mobile home removed off the property now? That's why you say it's in compliance?
Yes, sir. That was the older picture in 2012. The most current picture is June 25th, 2020. Nothing's there. It's gone.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I would, if there's no other, well, I'll wait for comments.
Okay. Is anybody that is anybody that would like to speak in favor or against this case, number 211-00331 by Autumn Leaf Enterprises? Okay, we have no one wanting to speak. Commissioner Harvey, have at it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would recommend that we, the board, reduce that $1,100 administrative monthly. And my recommendation is that the board accept $1,374 as a total enforcement action on this claim. This code's case 2011-00331.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a
but
motion.
it does need to have a time limit on it.
Within 90 days.
Within 90 days.
Would you
Yes.
would you include that in your motion, Commissioner Harvey, that they have 90 days?
I will, that they have paid it in full within 90 days of today's date.
Okay, and that's good for your second, Commissioner Goddard?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries unanimously. The next case is a fine reduction case, code case number 2015-416, Peter and Cassia Timby. I saw them on here earlier. Are they still with us? Yeah, I see you. Okay, good deal. If Mr. Thomas, if you would go ahead and give us your presentation, please.
Yes, sir. The address is 1221 North Highway 17, Palatka, Florida. The violation was an expired demo permit. The original amount was $23,277. The total cost of enforcement action was $1,263. The property owners purchased the property in May of 2020. They pulled the demo permit as required for the case, and they have cleaned the property up and are now compliant and requesting a fine reduction.
So on this particular one, if I'm understanding, they pulled a demo permit and they did the work and come into compliance, and the rub with the county is that they didn't close out their demo permit. Am I understanding that correctly, or did I miss something?
These are new owners, and the demo permit, after they purchased it, the demo permit had never been pulled by the prior owners or cleaned up. And they pulled the demo permit and cleaned up the property.
Okay, so the previous owner was the one that wasn't in compliance. When the new owners took over, they basically came in and got a demo permit and came into compliance.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Yes, Mr. Would the Timbies like to speak at this time?
No, sir.
Okay. Is there a commissioner that has any questions on this?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to make a recommendation that the Board of County Commissioners accept $663 if paid in full within 90 days.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? And what was that amount again, Commissioner Harvey?
$663.
663. Okay, thank you, sir. Is there any further? Yes, Commissioner Pickens.
How's he coming up with that number?
I removed the
Minus
$600 administrative monthly fee off of that total.
What did you say the total amount's going to be?
663. I removed the $600 off the 1263.
Are you on the same one I'm on?
Okay. I had a different number. You're correct.
Yep, I did too. I was on the wrong case. That's what, so 663.
Yeah, I put in a different number. I want to remove that 600 also. I'm with you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Pickens. And is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. I'd like to thank the Timbers for kindly being with us ever since 9 o'clock this morning. So hopefully that'll help. The next case is 2017-492 Condi. Thomas.
The address is 106 Sesame Street, Palatka, Florida. The property owners are Rodolphus Condi and Geraldine Condi. The violation was dangerous structure and care premises. The original fine amount is $11,993.50. The total cost of code enforcement action is $1,504. The new property owners purchased the property in November 2019. They have secured the home, cleaned the property, and they are compliant, and they are requesting a fine reduction.
Okay, is there anybody here today that would like to speak on this particular case? Okay, hearing none, Commissioner Harvey.
Was it Rodolfo?
Excuse me?
Who was the individual?
Rodolfo Condi.
Yes.
Condi and Geraldine and Rodolfo.
He's here. He's called in. He had some issue joining, but he's here now.
Okay, does he wish to speak?
Yes, if I can.
Okay, yes, sir. Go right ahead, Mr. Condi.
Thank you. Yes, sir. I just wanted to, Mr. Thomas explained to me everything. I was just hoping it'd be less than 15. And the other thing was, I wanted to see if I can get at least 6 months to pay it. So, because I'm on social and I'm not getting that much. But I know it's my problem, but I'm not trying to get out of it. I'm just trying to get some help.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Condi.
Reduction.
Come again?
I said if I can get a fine reduction, I would appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're working on that right now, Mr. Condi. Yes,
thank you, sir.
Commissioner Harvey, did you have anything to add here, sir?
I don't. I do have a recommendation if you're ready for that.
I'm ready for it now, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recommend on case number 2017-00 492, the Condis, that we reduce the fine to $11.74 and give them 180 days to make the payment.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Harvey and a second from Commissioner Rawls that we reduce the fine to $1,174 and we give them 6 months or 180 days to pay. So 180 days, excuse me. Is that correct, Commissioner Harvey?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Condi. Next case is 2007-00285. Thomas.
The owner is Emmanuel Williams. The violation was unsafe structure. The original fine amount was $115,293.50. The total cost of enforcement action was $2,989. Emmanuel Williams purchased the property in November 2019. He pulled all the required permits to make the structure habitable, and he has cleaned up the property, and he is now requesting the fine reduction.
Is there anybody that would like to speak on Emmanuel Williams' behalf, or Mr. Williams? I don't see in our call. Okay, I don't see anyone or hear from anyone. So, commissioners, what would you like to do?
I'll make the motion. And I am so glad to see these properties getting cleaned up. I don't know what to say, but I say we go ahead and do like we have been. Remove the administration fee, dropping the price down to $1,379, due in 180 days.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have, yes, Mr. Siafi.
Yes, sir. I thought we were going with a 90-day limit to pay on these unless requested otherwise.
Oh, you're right. It is 90 days. You're right.
Okay, would you like to change your motion, Commissioner Goddard,
Yes,
to the
it will accept
1379 in 90 days?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second. I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Goddard and second by Commissioner Pickens to reduce the fine to $1,379 to be paid within 90 days. Is there any more conversation on this?
Yeah,
Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I just like to
Yes,
make a comment.
Pickens?
Yeah,
Mr. Pickens.
I just want to reiterate what Commissioner Goddard said. This gentleman's done wonders with this piece of property. From the pictures, I mean, he put a lot of work into that, and that's what we want to see. So I wish him well with the remainder of his project. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. The next one is code case 2012-00025, Thomas and Linda Shell. Thomas?
Yes, so the address is 116 Sparrow Trail, Palatka, Florida. The violation was unpermitted pole barn with electric. The original fine amount is $52,893.50. The total cost of enforcement action was $2,215. Ms. Shell contacted code enforcement in February of 2020, unaware of the violations with the unpermitted sheds placed on the property by her now deceased husband. Ms. Shell acquired a demo permit and removed the shed from the property. It's compliant and is now requesting a fine reduction.
Okay, I see that Ms. Shell is with us today. Would you like to comment on anything, Ms. Shell?
I'm representing Ms. Shell. I'm Toby Boyd, a friend of hers and her deceased husband. There were some extenuating circumstances on this particular shed. The shed was purchased in Pomona Park from Brewer Industries. The reason we never, that Mr. Shell never got it in compliance is we could not get the engineering on that shed because they've since been, the business is closed. So the delay, so we're just asking, and she's on a limited income. She's on Social Security. And this is really just a huge fine for her. She is on limited funds. So that's why we're asking.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is there anybody else, any commissioners that would like to have any comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Harvey.
Sometimes we get very benevolent when we see situations in this manner. And I know that historically we're taking off the administrative monthly, but my heart goes out to this lady who, they got a shed, they couldn't get it permitted, they couldn't get it engineered. Her husband passed away and very limited income. I would like for us to really go out on a limb here. It is our lien and we can do what we want to do in special circumstances. I don't want to throw out a number right now, but I do feel like this case merits us having a benevolent heart and talking about it, sir.
Okay, does any other commissioner like to make a comment at this time and or a motion? Before we do, I'd like to say I agree with Commissioner Harvey. I know that we try to keep all these as the same as we possibly can. We try to keep them as consistent as we possibly can, but sometimes there's just a case that allows you to get a little outside of that consistency to do a little more for somebody when they got kind of ate up by the system when they were trying to comply. And I think this is one of those cases, and this commissioner, while I can't make a motion as sitting chair, if I could, I would make a motion that we only charge for the inspections only on this particular one.
Pass the gavel.
Well,
Mr. Chairman?
I was hoping I could get another commissioner to make that motion or something
Chairman,
that's close to it.
Mr. Chairman, that was going to be my recommendation. I just wanted to hear what other people said. But Mr. Chairman, I'll make the recommendation on Code Case 2012-00025 that the Board of County Commissioners accept $600 and pay within 180 days.
Okay. And we have a motion by Commissioner Harvey, and we have a second by Commissioner Pickens that we settle this case for $600 and that we give them the 180 days necessary to help them pay it. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for attending with us today, Ms. Shell.
Thank you.
Toby, I thought that was you when I looked up, so
Yeah.
I hope you're doing well.
Thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Our next case was code case number 2015-479, Archer and Philip Sandvik.
The address is 213 David Avenue, Interlaken, Florida. The violation was care premises and unsafe dwelling. The original fine amount was $33,072. Total cost of enforcement actions is $1,846. Philip Sandvik purchased the property in February 2020. He pulled the demo permit. He cleaned the property up. It is now compliant and is requesting a fine reduction.
Okay, is there anybody here to speak in favor or against this case today of Mr. Sandvik? Seeing or hearing none, the commissioners, Commissioner Harvey.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a recommendation on case number 2015-00479 that the Board of County Commissioners accept $1,546 if the fine is paid within 90 days.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, but I have a question.
Okay.
How did you come up to that number?
I took the $300 administrative hearings off. Oh, gosh.
Okay, because the number I came up with was 1,256.
Yeah, 1256 is what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to amend my motion for 1256. The board accepts $1,256 if paid within 90 days.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner, or amendment by Commissioner Harvey, and a second by Commissioner Goddard to reduce or to settle this for $1,256 and give them 90 days to pay it. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Of the motion as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries unanimously. Okay, that's all our codes cases. Next, we're going to move into the let's see. Ms. Parsons, did you have another email? What is it, ma'am?
From Tim Hotelling. He said, please provide update on the years-long fire service union labor contract.
Okay, well, I don't know that they're prepared to do that today. Terry, can you do a short of where we are on the contract? We're still in negotiations, aren't we?
Yes, so we're in negotiations. We're trying to schedule another appointment to get both sides back together so we can hopefully move forward and getting this closed out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the list is Kirker Court, the Honorable Tim Smith.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I have no items, but I do want to congratulate all of you on a great meeting today. It's really been an honor to listen to the discussion of all these important issues we have, the deliberations in building the budget and setting the millage rate, and I want to congratulate you all for that. I've talked to Susan Frank earlier, and she has no items either. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate you being with us this morning. I'm going to move into appointments at this time. Commissioner Goddard, do you have any appointments for us today, sir?
No, sir, I have not.
Okay. Commissioner Pickens, do you have any appointments today, sir?
I have none.
Commissioner Harvey?
I have none.
Commissioner Rawls?
I have none.
Okay, and I have none today. Next, we are going to ask the county administrator if he has any comments for us today.
The only comment, sir, is we look forward to getting much deeper involved with the report that came out today from your Fire Services Committee. I think they've done an admirable job, and staff is ready to move forward with some of the suggestions and look and see how we might be able to implement some things to make the citizens of Putnam County more appreciative of the services that we can provide, and do it in such a way that hopefully won't be cost prohibitive either. And so it's going to take a lot of work, and I think we got a great group of folks to work with, and I'm certainly looking forward to working with each and every one of them. I appreciate the task that you gave me today, and we'll get started on it right away.
Thank you, Mr. Suggs. The next on the list would be on the agenda would be Colonel Commando. You have anything for us today, Rich?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you.
All right, thank you for being with us today. Next, we have commissioners' requests or comments, and I'll start with Commissioner Rawls.
Again, I just want to thank everybody that participated in that committee for the work they did. I think this really exemplifies what we can do as a collective community using internal resources like this. I think we should take advantage of it in the future in other areas. But what a great report and great first step for the fire and EMS folks and resolving that problem. You know, I'm getting a few complaints here and there. We've had a lot of rain on some of the dirt roads, and I just keep telling people that you know, they're just going to have to be patient. We're going to get to them as soon as we can. I did get a phone call yesterday from somebody over in East Palatka, Palm Port, you know, with some flooding, but you know, with that's been going on for a long time, and with the torrential downpours that we had, I don't know if there's anything we can do to take a look at that subdivision, but they sent me some pictures yesterday. I asked them to send me a formal email, which I've not received, but they wanted to see if somebody could go there and take a look at the topography and maybe what could be done with drainage. Otherwise, I think we had a great meeting, very informative from the fire committee, and looking forward to the future.
Thank you, Commissioner Rawls. Commissioner Goddard.
Yeah, I'm on. You know, I always say, get out and see Putnam County, and I still believe that. Get out and see Putnam County. Going down to the Rodman Dam, it's just so nice to see people out there still enjoying it and safe distancing, but out enjoying what we do have here. Our fire committee did an awesome job. I mean, what else can you say? So glad to finally see that, and I can't wait to get into it. Very productive meeting. Excellent. Enjoyed being here.
Thank you, Commissioner Goddard. Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll keep I got quite a few, but I'll keep it as fast. Remind everybody about the census. If you can go online, and you can do the census online or by phone, and pretty soon it'll be knocking on your door. So if you want to avoid the knock, you can do any other way you want to do it. We do need to get our numbers up. COVID kind of curtailed our activities, but we're positive that we're going to be moving in the right direction. I want everybody to know to go download the Test It app from the National Association of Counties, and anywhere you are in the county, hit that app on your phone, and that gives the NACO an immediate response of your download and upload speed and your connectability, and that'll send a report back to our state that the state is going to be using when we come into broadband communication talks. I do want to say about dirt roads, I've seen some social media posts about dirt roads and need four-wheel drive. Remember, in the West End, a lot of these roads are done by the MSBU Citizens Committee. So if you have a complaint, surely it comes to the committee, and the committee will bring it forward at that point. But I want to thank those citizens for spending all the time they do on roads because it does make Putnam County better. I want to say before the fire committee, wow, I mean, just a real wow. They really worked hard on getting this done, and I applaud them tremendously for what they brought forward. Naturally, it's not going to be the end result. There's going to be some fine tuning by the commission, I'm sure. There's some things they probably we can't do, and there's some things we want to do that they didn't address. So I look forward to having those talks in the future. And one last thing, I want to thank Mr. Suggs. You know, him and I talk sometimes late at night, early in the morning, and he's just waking up before he even has coffee, before I'm telling him what I need him to do or recommending things. I get up at 4:30 in the morning, so I'm ready to go very quick. And I've even called Rich early in the morning. Today it was 2 phone calls to Rich about something I wanted to try to present, but it just wasn't the right time and it wasn't the right meeting for it. So we'll work on that. And Mr. Suggs, let me say this. Thank you for putting the staff together that you have down there. It's a pleasure and it's a privilege to walk in and have knowledgeable people that we can talk to. We don't always agree, but I can tell you one thing. It's refreshing to come and get the information that I need to make the decision that makes my life better and it makes the citizens of Putnam County better. And last but not least, Mr. Chairman, what a remarkable job you did again today virtually. You know, you were thrown into virtual world and you brought the rest of us along with you. And I commend you for a meeting well run. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. Commissioner Pickens.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'll just echo the sentiments of the rest of the commissioners, Jim Toronto and Mike Perry, Wayne McLean, and all the volunteers that served on the Fire Service Committee. Thank you for the report. Thank you for all the work. And now it's up to us to move this thing forward, and I believe this commission will. So I do believe it's correct that the administration needs to review this and then come back, and then we'll start having discussions of how to move this forward. So I just want to again thank everybody so much. This has been needed for a long time, but I believe it's the right time for us to receive this. And Chairman, again, an excellent meeting. It is challenging doing this by Zoom, but you've done a great job, and I appreciate all your dedication and efforts. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Pickens. And the only thing I really have today is the exact same sentiments of the other commissioners. I want to really, for another time, say how much I appreciate everybody volunteering for that committee, for that fire committee. I think that they've gone above my expectations on what they came up with the report they came up with, and given us a path to start moving this machine forward to where it works better in the end. So for that, I appreciate it. Is there anything else to come before the board? If not, this meeting is hereby adjourned. Don't forget, we have a workshop at 2.